I want you to try another experiment here. And again, you don't have to give me any answers here. This is purely for you to just observe your own reactions to. I want you to just imagine in your mind for a moment what a 60-year-old man looks like. Just for a moment. Whatever pops into your head first. Right? Forget this is a webinar about living forever. Just whatever pops into your head, just grab it and just think about what that image represents to you. And then a 77-year-old man. Just imagine that for a moment. See what image pops into your head. And just hang on to that image. Now, let me show you what images pop into my head when I think of a 60-year-old man and a 77-year-old man. These images. Now, I don't mean men in underwear, obviously. I mean, these guys are 77. Well, you can see a bodybuilder who's 77 years old. He looks pretty good. And this guy on the right here, bodybuilder, 60 years old. I can guarantee you this is not unusual. But if you have a belief system that says that this is unusual and you were expecting some hobbling old person on a walking stick, bent over maybe because their back is bent out of shape, then I have to ask you, if that's the image that popped into your head, then that is the idea of age that you are heading towards, because that is what your belief system is telling you is normal. This is such an important point. We have belief systems that imprison us. It's a bit like with the financial webinar we had a few weeks ago. We have these belief systems and they're really, really hard to shake. If you automatically think a 77-year-old is somebody who's declining, is somebody who's gradually, their body is falling to bits, that is where you are heading. That is what your own belief system will lead you towards. So I hope you're starting to get an appreciation that this age game we play with each other, this obsession with labeling each other, this kind of demand that we conform to certain ages, this is not a healthy thing if you do want to live beyond a certain age. This idea of decline as we get older is nothing more than a belief system. So let me shake up this belief system a little bit more. You may or may not have heard of this idea that the human body replaces itself every 7 to 10 years. Possibly you have heard of it, but if you haven't, just hunt around the internet. It's everywhere. Now, I did a little bit of digging around to see how truthful this was, and I expected there to be a lot of skeptical web pages saying this is total nonsense. I'm going to prove that this is total nonsense. And to some extent there was, but it wasn't in the way that I expected it to be. What I'm about to tell you comes from presumably reputable information sources, or at least if you trust anything on the internet, it's reputable. So people were arguing that the human body does not replace itself every 7 to 10 years because it's not as clear-cut as that. And what they were arguing, they were saying that white blood cells within your body live more than a year, so they need to be replaced every year. And they were arguing that red blood cells in your body live about 4 months, so they need to be replaced every 4 months or so. And they were arguing that skin cells live about 2 to 3 weeks. So, every 2 to 3 weeks, your skin kind of regenerates. And then cells in your colon, they live about every 4 days. So I was reading this stuff and thinking, hang on a second, that doesn't actually make the idea of every 7 to 10 years less powerful. It makes it more powerful, because we're basically saying that all the body cells, but this is excluding brain cells, are constantly being renewed. Isn't that interesting? It's not that our body is replacing itself every 7 to 10 years. It's continuously replacing itself. Now let me ask you a question. If your body is continuously renewing itself without you even knowing what's going on, then why should you decline? Why should you not just get fitter, healthier, happier the older you get? And I'm telling you, there is no reason other than you have accepted that society, that the beliefs around you, the beliefs you've adopted, tell you that you must decline. And I'm telling you, even from personal experience, you do not have to decline. If you challenge those beliefs, you will find they're not based upon anything, really. This idea of in your 80s, you're going to become worse. In your 90s, you're going to become worse. It's nonsense. I told a story once on Inward Quest, and it was a true story. I was working for this spiritual organization, and I used to meet lots of spiritual people. And one day I met this guy, and he was being shown around the offices, and the person who was showing him around was saying, "Guess how old he is?" And I was kind of thinking, okay, this is an awkward question to answer. It's a bit like when a guy has to answer the question to a lady, do I look fat in this? Then the only answer is run for your life. But anyway, back to the subject. So the person who was showing this guy around was saying, "How old do you think he is?" And so I was staring at him, and he kind of looked at me and said, "Yeah, how old do you think I am?" And I thought that this guy who looked in his 40s, I thought he was actually, maybe he was in his 20s or 30s and he was just trying to boast a little bit. He doesn't look that old, and maybe his boast was about to backfire. So I was trying to be diplomatic. I was trying to sort of say, you can't be more than like 30s, 40s. And I really thought he was in his 40s. And then he just looks at me and smiles, and he just says, "I'm actually in my 90s. And I just kind of paused, and I could feel almost my jaw hitting the floor at that point. One of those occasions where your mouth just hangs open for no reason. And I was just, and that changed my view of a lot of things. When you meet somebody that completely stands outside of your belief system, that shakes things up for you. Now, with the age game, that unfortunately is very unlikely to happen, because with the age game invokes the law of attraction. If you have a belief that people are going to look like they're ready they can hardly walk at the age of 80, that's what you're going to attract in your life. That's the evidence you're going to see. You're not going to see 90-year-old people walking around looking like 40-year-olds. It's not going to happen. The reason that happened to me was probably I was open to it. That was a very opening, mind-expanding part of my life. I was ready for any information. But if you walk around with this belief that people are going to be certain ages and they're going to behave in certain ways at certain ages, you are imprisoning yourself, and you will not allow law of attraction to bring you evidence to the contrary.